What's up, everyone? This is Gibberish HS here today, and today we are doing another Gibberish discussion podcast. Today we are joined by two Gibberish members. We got Matt
Hello.
and we got Martin.
Heyo.
So today we're going to be talking about a lot of Avatar stuff, including the Avatar Season 4 book air, what that could have been like, Avatar live action Netflix series, and what a new Avatar show could possibly look like. So yeah, let's get into it. We're going to start with Avatar Season 4 book air for the Last Airbender series. So with this, we all know about the Avatar Last Airbender, one of the greatest shows, I would say, of all time. And with that, only 3 seasons, but I mean, for only 3 seasons, this show has a lot of love in it. So, my question is, would you guys want a season 4? Did you think that it ended fine where it was, or do you think that we had more room to grow? Let's start with Matt.
I personally think there was a little bit more room to grow to explore the world after major conflict. That could have been really cool to have 13 episodes just to have an exposition area to work with on the more peaceful scale, since everything basically is resolved except for minor conflict.
Yeah. Especially with the threads of like Zuko's mother and what happened to Azula, stuff like that. What do you think, Martin?
I kind of agree on that, but I also wish they would have focused more on the war part of Sozin's comment. I feel like if they would have had like half an episode each to the different factions fighting at the same time, and then possibly even the aftermath of Zuko becoming king. I mean, the Fire Nation itself was based off of the Japanese imperial nation, so I would feel there would still be small pockets of resistant Fire Nation soldiers who wouldn't accept Zuko as a true, Fire Nation king. So I feel like that is something they could have possibly taken the story in a different direction. Because, I mean, just because a war is over doesn't mean the battle stops.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very similar to like
I
how
just
the
feel,
Mandalorian portrays it.
yeah, like just because they say the planet's gone doesn't mean they're all gone. There's still going to be pockets of resistance and their clan everywhere across the universe.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like you guys said, there is a lot of potential to move on from there, and a lot of room to grow. So from what we know, the season 4 of Avatar kind of got cut because of the Avatar live action movie, which we all know that was amazing. So,
Yeah,
with that, the story kind of concept was that it would go into a lot of Zuko and about his pressure being on as Fire Lord, explore some of the aspects of his mother, and also have a redemption kind of arc for Azula, where it was talked about where Azula would kind of come back to sanity and kind of have a little redemption arc there, and a lot of more of the kind of like what you guys were saying, the aftermath of a war and all that, because this book would be called Air for the final element, and air really represents freedom. So what do you guys think of that kind of storyline? Do you like that kind of where those branches could go off, or go ahead, Martin?
oh, okay. Yeah, I believe that would be something difficult because book 4 with the aftermath of the war I feel like would be good development for Aang because, like I said, he's a 12-year-old kid having to pretty much end a 100-year war. I want to see the kind of psychological effect it's had on him and his teachings because he's very peaceful. He's not a war person.
Mhm.
So I want to see more of a psychological, like inner demon kind of development throughout his years where he has pretty much PTSD from having to make these choices as a kid. But I mean, they touch a lot on development of character, but they didn't have enough time to actually flesh it out into more than what they were allowed in the pretty much the time span they had for 24 minutes an episode.
Yeah. What do you think, Matt?
I would say, personally speaking, I feel like the PTSD aspect and Aang's psyche, honestly, just exploring all characters, giving each character a little arc, something to help branch out, whether it's helping to heal one character, whether it's a developmental of relationship, just something to give a little more after effect instead of it ends, then flash forward to when they're adults. Something to show that these kids did suffer major victories, but also defeats that afflicted not only their physical but their mental growth.
Mm-hmm.
Changed how they viewed certain things.
Yeah, because, fighting a big war like that, especially all of them, I think Zuko's the oldest at being like, what, 15? I think he's like 16 by the end.
He's a little older. I think he's the oldest out of the group at 17, and then I think it goes Sokka at like 14 or 15, along with Suki as she joins the group at the end, and then Katara's like 13 and Aang is 12.
Yeah.
And Toph.
Yeah, because like that has a lot of big repercussions at fighting a war at that age and all that. Which
it's pretty much a bunch of middle school and high schoolers taking on the world.
Yeah, which I feel like Azula is kind of like the best example of like the war taking a mental effect on her with the crown and all that being placed on her, and she's younger than Zuko, so
yeah, I think she's Katara's age, or no, not Katara. I think Sokka. She's like 15 or 16.
Yeah, she's not much younger than Zuko, but what do you guys think of Azula in this final season? Matt.
Of book 3 or a thing for book 4?
For book 4.
Oh, book 4.
I'd like to see her come back, but I wouldn't agree with her going right back to sanity. There'd be a lot of personalized drama between her and Zuko, her and Katara, her and the whole team Avatar. That'd be the big thing. It would take a lot for her to even reconcile that she lost and that she was straight up insane.
Yeah.
Ever since she could really consider herself right.
What we do here is go.
Mm-hmm.
But I would think Azula would be the most interesting villain-esque character, while still not being the most prominent of it all, if that was to happen, since she'd be locked up probably for the majority of it.
Yeah. I think Azula is just one of those characters where she has so much growth to still be explored. I'm not sure, like you said, if a full-on redemption arc is something I would like, just because she was such a centered antagonist throughout the show. I don't know. What do you think, Martin?
I don't think she should have a redemption arc. The whole point to me of the character of Azula is this, like you said, this is what happens during the time of war, but her dad pretty much raised her to be a sociopath, and I don't believe she would ever change because she's been inbred since birth to think and feel like that. There's no going back from that and snapping at that young of an age. So she would always be resistant to everything. Like I said, I personally don't think she would have a redemption at all.
So with the end thread of Zuko looking for his mother, could his mother be someone who brings her back? Because in Ember Island, we do see her kind of seem a little remorseful for what her mother thought of her. Is that something that could be potential?
Uh, I don't think so because I feel at that point she went to the island to clear her thoughts because she knew the next step in the Fire Nation plan is to advance, and she can't have any old feelings, regrets, or emotions to hang on as she makes that next step forward. Just because of who she is, she has no personal connections to anything, and she realized that out again that would have been a possibility for her.
Hmm.
It's just she's too far gone. Sometimes you can't help everybody.
Yeah. What do you think, Matt? Do you agree with that?
Thinking about it, yes, only because the entire time she got worse and worse. By the end of it, she was at a point of mostly no return. Sanity would be a thing, but she would still be the POS that she was for most of the time, just because Dad, the Fire Lord, like Martin said, rose her to be a sociopath, something that it would be a lot of work and not enough to do in a single season to even come back from. At most, she would be redeemable as a just general criminal, but she would never return to society, or that and a mother would never be able to help. She would only have to have pity for her, which would make it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of like an anti-hero, or you don't think even that far?
I don't even think that far.
She would still be a criminal. She'd still be a villain, but she'd be a lockup villain. She'd be a villain that would never come back out of her psychosis.
Hmm.
Just thinking about it, yeah, she was a sociopath, and my original intention, my original intended comment was thinking there's hope, but she had hope in the beginning of the series. She didn't have any hope by the end of the series.
Yeah.
There was no solid middle ground for her.
Which I kind of like that about Azula, how she's that character who's just like, she kind of just shows like the worst of the Fire Nation in a sense, like the most deadly yet, because I've always found Azula to be like, she's kind of like the Darth Vader, and Ozai is like the Emperor in a sense. Like Azula is
Yeah,
the one you fear, but even though Ozai is the big bad, you know what I mean?
I think Azula's character in general shows a good progression because when you first meet her, she's this prim and proper Fire Nation princess coming to get her uncle and brother and take them home, not realizing it was the guys to take him as prisoner. But as she progresses throughout the rest of the seasons, you see a steady drop in sanity as the war takes a turning point
Yeah.
for the Fire Nation. And I just feel like that climax of Sozin's comment and her snapping is a good just representation of how far the Fire Nation went and what's going to happen to them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my last question about this is kind of in touch with Korra in a way. So one of my biggest worries about a season 4 now is that it would be kind of like just a segue for Korra. I feel like shows kind of do that sometimes with doing that just because like if this had come out when it was supposed to, like right after season 3, then I wouldn't have this worry. But with Korra being out, do you guys think it could be a segue into that? What do you think, Martin?
No, I think a season 4 would have been good because, like you said, they could use it as a segue. But you got to
Hmm.
remember, Aang lived for at least another 50 years before Korra. So
Hmm.
there would be enough time to show different adventures throughout their life with everybody. And with 50 years, you got plenty of time to do at least a couple of seasons in a movie or something. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, you could dedicate whole arcs to a lot of backstory that Korra would have and how that progressed throughout the years of the rest of Aang's life and then just continue on into Korra. So their timetable is only as short as they make it.
Okay.
I'd agree on that, Only thing is, they've got a lot of comics that have done a lot of adventures. If they were to do adventures, I feel like it would be a lot of cleaning up the aftermath and then going forward a little bit more after major cleanup has been done, and then potentially leading that up. But I don't think we see anything of 20-year-old Aang, considering that we see a lot of him in Korra series. I feel like at most we would see the lead up of Aang to becoming the proper avatar that he did become at the end of the series, but him taking that role 100%, not doing it because it was a duty.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just a little worried that it would be too much like the rest would be him like starting Republic City and stuff like that. So that was kind of just my fear about it a little bit.
No, that's understandable. That could, like I said, their timetable is as large or as small as they make it. So
Hmm.
they have the opportunity to do a lot of stuff if they were to go back to it. Hopefully, they do with the success of the Netflix taking it on recently for streaming.
Definitely. Well, it's official. I won the book 4, so
I
uh,
think everybody does.
yeah, I would like that, or some kind of or some just kind of movie would be awesome to me. All
Movie
right.
could be done considering
Oh.
the trend.
Oh yeah,
Could do TV movies.
yeah, that would be really cool. As long as it's animated.
I don't know, most definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I could watch a couple of hour and 20-minute movies here and there if it's just adventure or story building.
Definitely. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So, moving away from that, we're going to start into the live action Netflix Avatar series. Now, I am kind of cross with this because, like, I have faith in the writers who have returned for the show, but then again, I'm like, could Avatar really work as a live action series? Like, that's something I've always been very skeptical about. So, I guess my first question is just, are you guys excited? Like, what do you think? Go ahead, Mark.
Yes.
Oh, Mark.
And-
Matt, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
But yes, only because with the writers there, and if they get a good director knowing what the show's feeling is about, we can not only get probably some of the best visual aspects, but some of the best choreography aspects, considering all the bendings are based around the martial arts.
Mhm.
And if you get good choreography writers for those kind of martial arts, not to mention having just a good sense of story pace where it's not stagnant in one too many spots, I feel like live action could be a genuinely good show.
I believe it would be. The aspects I'm afraid of is the actors. I mean, it takes more than a year to film a show that's most likely going to have multiple seasons. And my issue is obviously a 12-year-old kid ages really fast in 3 years if they're going to take a year per season.
True.
So biggest worries is the age progression of the kid, considering the show is supposed to take place in the span of a year.
Mhm.
And I know they said that they're gonna go more. They're actually gonna cast the ethnicities of the people a lot better than they did in the movie.
Mhm. Yeah, that is something I think is gonna be very interesting because like they've also said that it looks like the first season of this would probably end around the winter solstice episode, the first season. So like that problem that you just said is a pretty big one if they're gonna take like 6 to 7 seasons to finish this last Airbender
Yeah.
arc. So is a live action Netflix show something you guys are still excited about, despite even though we had the failure of the live action movie? Anyone can answer.
I believe so. I mean, like Matt said, they have the original writers, and hopefully they're gonna bring the characters to life in a more 3D realm. Because I mean, the character development for them was good for the short amount of time they were on screen. Watching it now as an adult, I'm realizing that you don't really realize that kind of stuff as a kid.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's really all I have to say. Is because to me, I think the story, and if they get a good enough director that has good choreography, sense in the bending styles as there are martial arts, that's you gotta hit those major points. If not, it's not gonna come together really well.
Mhm.
I'll agree. I mean, as any good thing can go, movies have a failure of capturing a big adventure in a limited time frame of an hour and a half to 3 hours. That can
Mhm.
work with a good director, but also needs to be a short tail. But the Netflix series really will work so long as things go in the right place and they just make it not too heavily far apart from each other. Because doing a year, they're gonna have to cast them young and have to have them grow quick
Mhm.
with that. But I think Spy is a rather audacious movie that just didn't work. The Netflix series will be, hopefully in its own right, best contender for adaptation from animated media to the big screen, or at least a small streaming screen.
Mhm.
I mean, they've Netflix has already proven they can do it. I mean, look at the Marvel Netflix series,
What we
you
do
know,
here is go
Daredevil,
back,
Punisher, and all
back,
that.
back, back, back.
They give you a lot of story and a lot of details in a short amount of time that they have, that they can focus on those details better than movies can. So
Yeah.
I hope they learned a lot from those series that they're gonna push it over to Avatar to make it the show that it needs to be.
So with those Marvel shows, this is kind of where my biggest question and concern has. So, uh, a live action show is very different from an animated show, and so we do have the original writers coming back, like we said. So with it being live action, is the tone of the show gonna change? Is it gonna feel a lot more serious being live action? Because we have a lot of that animated, whimsical, childish feel that the show brings us. So do you think a live action is gonna be a little more serious? Netflix, with that, like, what? How do y'all think about it? Let's do Matt first.
So I feel like the tone change will be there only because you can't have the big odd expressions or the crazy over the top things they do for the comedic roles. So I feel like some things will tonally change, but as a whole, I think the series will keep its trademark feeling. Though I feel like the darker moments will have a lot more sinister tone that actually might help overall. Not to say that the original series didn't do it bad, but it might give live action a minor edge simply on some of the darker moments that lead into what becomes some of the darkest elements of the show in the second half of the overall run.
I think a lot of that just has to come down to the acting itself. If you have the right actor with the right script, then it could come to life really good. If the director's good at doing their job, so hopefully they cast the right people for the right parts, and that everybody has the chemistry that they need to. Because even from the very beginning, it's a very tight knit group of close people that have the same goal in mind, just different paths once those goals were met. So, in order to get that chemistry, I feel like getting the actors in place is the major part that they're going to have to come over, besides the script.
Hmm.
And I feel like just that, and if they could get that right, I feel like it would be successful regardless of the effects or the setting or the way they film it. If the chemistry's right, I think it'll be there for success. At least in my opinion on that matter.
Yeah, I think that is gonna have a really big impact on that. Is how the director chooses to do that. It's just, and I feel like even Avatar, it kind of once they hit season 2, they were able to get a little more serious with it, able to get a little more tightly knit story. Because season 1's a lot more like individual 20-minute episode fun time kind of thing. Because that's what they were doing for Nickelodeon at the time. So, like, my main question is because they have said they're gonna dive deeper into the show a little bit, explore some bigger character growths. Do you think we could get some like even like if this does go all the way to like season 3 content? Do you think it could get kind of dark with like Azula being like this scary figure in the show, all that kind of stuff? What do y'all think about that, Martin?
I believe so. Just, I think what would be better in the aspect of people watching Avatar live action is they are fans of the original animated show. So they're going to have that AIM group tight knit feeling already. So there's the potential to grow a lot of the secondary characters they come across that only show up in one episode, but if they dive deeper into the troubles that the Fire Nation is having on grounds, or them coming across just random citizens, Arthurian citizens trying to go to Boston, say if they dive deep more into the lore of the people and the setting around them, I think that would be a good direction for the show because, like I said, it's going to be returning fans watching a different, basically the same tale told in a different way, and hopefully, with that in place, it gives you opportunity to grow the environment.
Yeah. What do you think, Matt?
I'll agree on that. Definitely, it'll, based on how they altercate and dive in, it can give the Avatar world not only a better world boost, which it already has a good world, but it would push it not necessarily darker, but give it the more realistic tone to say this world could be real. It could be a legitimate thing, and here's actor reactions that we could never show because we were a kids network.
See, I'm trying to think of like. So, do you guys think with this that people should be comparing this to the original, or do you think they should just, when we go into this, do you think we should just see this as like a new thing? What do you guys think?
It's like I said, I would like for it to be telling the same story in a different perspective. So we already know the story, we already know what's going on. They're just giving us a different take of it, a different view. It's kind of like people who are fans of Full Metal Alchemist. There's two different versions of the show. While the first version digs off into its own story because it wasn't caught up with, it got ahead of the manga. But the second version is more true to the manga. There's still a lot of references and character developments in the first iteration that they don't show in the second, and it's just kind of implied that you should know that material. So it's been done before in media. Just hopefully the writers and the director take that direction moving forward, that we are fans, we know this lore, it's something we know, we want to see it from a different take.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'd be a very. I think we should kind of go into that perspective. What do you think, Matt?
On one hand, I will agree, just because a new side of the story is always better. It's why so many series tend to, when they make their second wind, tend to have better aspect and more appreciation happens. But I still feel like, in its own right, giving it its own leisure for at least the first part, just to see how it does. That way we can see if they're really going to go the full adaptation routine, or if they're going to snip it down, but still give us the heart and soul that we understand from the original content.
I think my mindset was like we should look at it almost like its own thing, but still hold it to a very high standard. That way they do a good job with it.
Yeah, I agree on that completely. And it's good to see everybody's different view, because sometimes without saying it out loud, you don't know if it's a collective thought from the fan base, you know?
Yeah.
And I just hope they're the kind of creators that listen to their fan base, because the ones that do just end up with a better series and story altogether.
hmm Well, my last question with this segment is kind of a little off, but it's mainly kind of just about Netflix now. I think it's kind of safe to say that Netflix hasn't been doing the best in the last few years with so many other streaming services, especially with Disney Plus coming. But recently, it looks like they have a lot of potential coming out with like The Witcher season 2, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and the new Narnia TV series and all that. So, do you guys think that this is kind of like a turning point for Netflix? Let's start with Martin.
I believe so. Right now, Netflix over the years has made a lot of not bad investments, but what they were trying to do was grow the European market and Asian market. So they catered to that for the past couple of years. I mean, you can see with the influx of Korean shows and a lot of French TV shows and British shows. It's just, I think that they're at that point, they're done building up a catalog for, and they're going to start focusing on individual TV shows for specific countries to meet their needs. And I feel like if this round of shows doesn't make it, Netflix may take a bad turn, because I feel like that's the only reason a lot of people are sticking around is for the originals, unless they stop altogether from becoming a streaming service and go into some sort of new streaming, new content without a physical channel on Saturday.
Yeah, especially with like losing like Friends and other shows like that, which were big
Yeah.
advertisements for them.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, here's the cast of Friends get like, I think 20 million a year just from the syndication rights from Friends. So I wouldn't doubt that losing a big show like that would be something that's probably not cost efficient for them to get more views and no more.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, Matt?
Since I don't watch a lot of Netflix, and my main Netflix stuff I've seen has been some of the newer stuff, not really their worldwide content, their stuff
You
like
don't
that.
have that opportunity to just browse or look for random crap like we do.
Yeah, no, and so I would say, for me at least, because I do have some access from time to time, it would be a nice point for me to at least start trying to invest more into Netflix. But on the other point, I don't think it would be too much unbroken territory, since not only Witcher season 2, a whole new Narnia run, several different new season 2s they're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like it's gonna be a good point for them to hopefully make a singular focus and not just try what's popular and push what's gonna be good.
I feel like that we're heading into this like in the next 3 years we're gonna be coming into this really like almost nostalgic age of TV. Like I feel like especially with like Star Wars, like they've only really announced a bunch of like TV shows for the next few years. So like I'm really curious because like we're getting like this like kind of like age of like the Lord of the Rings TV series, The Witcher. There's very much like I don't want to say geek, but different kind of culture that's more to this kind of susceptible. You guys know what I'm saying? It's kind of weird, but
No, I get you completely. And to add into this topic, you gotta remember we're in that day and age now that production companies don't have to have that middleman of the cable company. So they don't have to meet certain standards that a cable company can't show certain images, graphic, TV because of kids or whatever. So I feel like cable companies are going to be a thing of the past, hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, with everybody going to streaming and the cable. I mean, production companies don't have to worry about having to share their money with the cable company, they could charge whatever they want,
Mhm.
$5 or $10, and they're getting that straight to their pocket instead of having to share 15, 20% or whatever their deal is with a cable company. So I feel like we're gonna see a turn in a lot of the content that's being put out, as in more graphic and more violent, because they're not gonna have to heed to a lot of the boards because it doesn't affect them because they're releasing it on their own terms. Unless they're gonna do some sort of boxed release in DVD or
What we
Blu-ray,
do here
but
is go
at
back,
this
back,
point,
back,
who
back,
does that
back,
anymore when you could just buy it digital and keep it on your computer?
Mhm.
Well, they could still release the content physically, but in its own particular area, it does have a very niche area. Personally, I have bought the Stranger Things seasons 1 and 2 on physical, but that's because it's a collector's edition. So I not only get a movie or the TV series, but I also get a cool little VHS box, something that's kind of a neat look what I have kind of thing.
Mhm.
But with the rise of streaming companies, I feel like physical things, unless they're movies or very select TV shows, they'll just start plummeting in the market and just being a couple dollar rentals or $20 owns, stuff in that field.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely say I'm very excited with shows like, the Kenobi series and Mandalorian and all these that we just said, Narnia and all the rest. I'm very excited for the TV in the future. Not as much movies, but TVs definitely I'm very excited about. So, is this something you guys would like, this Avatar show? A new one. Let's start with Martin.
Yeah, I believe a new Avatar show would be good if they focused on. I would like to see episodes focused on other past avatars in probably like a 52-minute format, hour-long format, if they were to do it. Just focus on a major conflict that past avatars have gone through. I mean, you could tell there's a lot of stories about Kyoshi that you could tell, or just other weird stuff that avatars have learned throughout the years. It doesn't even have to be anything important, just something weird and wacky, like like why they like certain things, and it just kind of keeps passed on throughout the iterations of the avatar itself.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think that'd be the best way to go. Only because making a new series, at least making a new character would be good, but as you saw with Korra, the past generations no longer matter. Everything has been eradicated. Korra is the reset to the Avatar line. So I would love to see more about the lesser known avatars, things that are just interesting about them, or the worst things they've had to ever encounter, or the most heroic things they've done. Something that would give their character a little more fluff to make them feel more recognized instead of just 4 primary characters out of the entire 2 run of the Avatar series.
Yeah.
I was just thinking they could do a funny like process to this. Like you start with just start with a random avatar and have them go about their day, and then they're like, "Oh, I remember this one time in my past life," and it does like that whole dream sequence, and then they take off into the story they're about to tell, and then like right as that episode ends, they could do the avatar they were just covering start over again with that dream sequence leading into the next episode.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, you could the world in Avatar is open to so many different views, and who knows if that's how it happens. I mean, that'd be a cool premise for the show, though. That each episode is literally a memory that each avatar in the previous episode is remembering for the not the first time, but just remembering it in general for the sake of the story.
I would kind of like something like the DC Justice League movies, where it's just like they just start making this like animated movie thing where it's just each movie is about like a different avatar that came before like Aang.
Yeah.
Like that would actually kind of just be cool. Like an Avatar Kyoshi movie, an Avatar, so forth. That'd be kind of cool.
It would be.
So, but
And
it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
no, you're good. It was just rehashing stuff we said.
It sounds like you guys would rather a prequel series, though, rather than a new one.
And I wouldn't want to look at it as a prequel series because you're not really establishing a previous history arc. You're just establishing previous memories of the Avatar character itself. So I don't look at it as a prequel. I just look at it as a continuation of the story because there's more than one.
On the one hand, calling it a prequel wouldn't be wrong, but as Martin said, a continuation telling things that we've never seen definitely would be a better way, since the only Avatar to get any major media outside of Kyoshi or Roku in the main line was Kyoshi, and she had a few episode arc on Avatar: Lost Airbender, mentioned twice in Korra, and it has a 2-novel series that's going about her rise to Avatar fame. So I would love to see the weird ones, the ones that we see in the background, taking a focus on them not calling it a prequel, but calling it, here's something that happened, let's look at it and see what we learned in the modern day of Avatar.
And to go off of that, they do mention a lot in the show itself that like they learn certain moves throughout the years that previous avatars never knew. So the moves and the fighting styles and everything they know gets passed on kind of like by a weird genetics through the avatar cycle, with that spirit moving from body to body and learning experiences. That's where they could do the weird focus things. Like it doesn't always have to be a fighting move. Like they could focus on episode on why the airbenders tend to fly a certain way, the avatar airbenders compare, why a firebender kid would be using, I mean obviously because he's the avatar, but why he would be using waterbending techniques and nobody could figure it out before they realized he was the avatar, because their memories get passed on, so their memories are pretty much their fighting style and moves. That's something that they could focus more on for character development on the weirder side of the avatar spectrum, instead of it all being serious fighting battle. It could just be quirky personality traits.
Yeah. That actually would be like really fun, I feel like. Just have them like very, very personal, kind of in a way.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what Avatar was all about. It was a bunch of kids traveling the world, having goofy adventures while trying to fight a deadly battle at the same time. So they're gonna have those episodes of super serious conflict and battle, and then you're gonna have your goofy, fun day at the park kind of episodes.
Yeah. Definitely. So, with Korra being, I would say, less of a. I would say that it's like not looked on like horribly, but it's not. It doesn't hold up to like the standard I would say Last Airbender had. So, what do you think? Are like, is there anything they should, if they do make a new animated Avatar series of some sort, whether it be like a past one of other avatars or a future one? What do you think some lessons they have learned from Korra? What do you think they can take from that? Let's start with Matt.
I feel like looking at the prime differences between Avatar: Lost Airbender and Legend of Korra, the main difference that at least I notice is the general tone. Because Korra is older, the world has evolved, but they still give her a similar tone. Only about Korra's big thing was some of the things didn't feel natural to her. Some of the circumstances that they put her in didn't feel quite organic. And I
Mhm.
feel like putting an avatar in a unnatural scenario, but still making them feel organic was what they struggled with Korra, at least to me. So if they were to go through with the new series, with the new avatar, the big thing I would like for them to do is kind of, I guess the big term is personalize it, but don't make it feel like it's trying to be its own past. It's taking the goods of both series, but not trying to be so new that it's almost unrecognizable.
I think the point you're trying to make, Matt, is with the last Airbender, the characters had their own personalities, but at the same time, they weren't too fleshed out. So everybody had that opportunity to connect to a certain character that fit their personality more better, or not better, but in a more personal sense. And while I haven't watched Korra, I do know that the characters are more fleshed out, as you said. They're older, so it kind of makes it harder for the audience to connect with certain characters because they kind of represent the worst of those certain personality traits that the character is attributed to. So a show would definitely have to be more free spirited, more open to a personal character development. I feel like in order to without also being so politically correct and trying to add too much of what's going on in personal pop culture that tries to make it more relevant when all it does is makes it dated and aged and for them to be a platform that they don't need to be. I think that's a lot of the downfall that Korra had is they were trying to be more than what they should have instead of just a kid show. Well, not a kid show, but an animated series in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's putting it in a very more understandable form since I wasn't able to. But yeah, no, I can. That's definitely something that I'd love to see in a new series because those downfalls was what made Korra not as fun, as refreshing, and also not as emotionally connecting in almost half the plot structures they tried. But that's just me, however, because I don't personally like teenage drama.
Yeah, and I felt like that Korra was trying to reach a different audience, a little more mature audience, which I respected it for doing that. I just think that it didn't do it as well as it could have.
They went in the wrong direction by trying to target a small audience that may not even be into that show, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that that is one thing. I think it's okay to try to reach a different audience. I just think that with that, like there were a lot of problems with that show, especially in season two, with pacing wise and stuff like that. That really just threw it off. I feel like, but I think the one thing that Korra did do well over like in comparison, Korra at its best was when it was experimenting with new things and it kept the friendly and lightness of Last Airbender and kind of just took a like a darker tone, especially in season three. I think Matt will know this a little better since he has watched the show, but in
Yeah.
season three with the Asir and like they were much more on that was a much more Avatar Last Airbender style because they were on an adventure going out traveling in the Earth Kingdom and you got to see a lot more kind of like the world that Aang left, but it's a little darker I feel like in a sense because you had like this like group of the Red Lotus and all that. So if I'm trying to make my point clear, I think you can take the lightness and aspect of it and change it a little bit to fit that audience. If that makes sense. I don't know if I portrayed that very clearly, but
I mean, I understand what you're saying on that. It's definitely something that if they were to stick with the same tonal shift, but don't experiment too much in the wrong direction,
Yeah.
that would have helped immensely.
Yeah. I think horror just went too much towards the drama aspect, like a CW show. Uh,
Yeah, and I feel like they they really did have to kind of come up with a story on this. I remember originally Korra was only supposed to be like, it went from a 4-part miniseries to a 6-part miniseries to having a whole season being made in the span of I think 3 or 4 months, or it could be longer. That's what I remember, like way back when all this was happening. So I feel like if they would have been given more time for Nickelodeon to say, "Hey, we're gonna pick it up for a full season. Let's push it back a little bit. Let's see if you could get the story developed," because I feel like they were stuck with the concept and they pretty much painted themselves into a corner by setting the aspect of the show in the beginning how it was, because it was only supposed to last six episodes. So they probably had their story thought out, but they probably had to stretch it further than they realized. So I feel like that's one of the big downfalls that the show did have on its back starting off.
yeah, I would agree with that. That it just
Yeah.
it felt like a lot of filler sometimes. And I feel like that was most evident with season 1 and 2. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind a new Avatar show. I think if it done right, it could be really good. I think I would actually prefer a Avatar movie, but that may just be me. Uh, so, would you guys rather a movie or a TV show?
Mm, I would prefer animated show, to be honest. If we're going forward with other projects that aren't The Last Airbender or Korra, just because it would be going back to a sense of just what you're familiar with, and I would rather have that happy-go-lucky feeling going in, knowing I'm gonna see an avatar probably crush somebody with a rock. If they could take that darker tone with the animation,
Mm-hmm.
then I feel like it would probably be done right, and that's something I would enjoy to watch.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Matt?
On the one hand, I wouldn't mind a movie, but a show would have much more fleshed out areas to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and also make me a little bit character a little bit more, which is something I like. I like to experience a character's journey, and a movie can only do so much for me, while a TV show can give me all that emotion to love them, and that way, if anything does bad happen, which most time it does, I can at least build an emotional connection to the scenario that they're suffering through.
Yeah. You just have a lot more time to get developed with those characters. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I think that those are a lot of great points. Well, that ends this discussion on gibberish discussions. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode today, and please check out the YouTube channel. It is Gibberish HS on YouTube, and we will soon be on all recent podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, and so forth, wherever you get them. So thank you guys so much for watching. Is there anything you guys would like to plug in, Matt?
Normal thing. I have a Instagram and DeviantArt underneath the same name of Bakaneko07. Primarily in art pages with a splash of a few other things.
Awesome. Martin, you got anything?
I don't got anything. I wasn't prepared. I did have some, so possibly next time, because it's a good topic discussion, I believe.
Awesome. Well, then next time, come in and get Martin's info, and we'll have you guys there. Thank you guys so
No
much for
problem.
watching, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.